Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from the Tropical Roundtable on Internet Partnership Radio. Thanks for tuning in last night with a video update, July 6, 2006. Hope everybody had a good week, and it is soon to be coming to a close. And in the tropics, there's not much to talk about, but I think there is, because there's going to be a few important features over the next several days, weeks, that will play a significant role in, I think, a burst of tropical development. Out there right now, you can see we do have a lot of cloudiness and showers extending throughout much of the western Atlantic, primarily due to what still is, but is pretty much dying off, what was an upper level low. And this upper level low was sitting right about here for the longest time, kind of meandering up in this area near the Bahamas, dropping copious amounts of rain, while causing significant wind shear throughout the Caribbean, inhibiting any cyclone development, inhibiting any waves getting past 50 west. They were getting torn apart. The wave would be very good looking, and then once it got to 50, 55 west, it'd be so sheared apart that the southern part would slide into South America, and the northern part would kind of get sucked into the upper level low and spread moisture to the north. That is likely going to stop as this upper low moves out of the way. What we will have is a large ridge of high pressure building in well into the Atlantic basin, and this high could get into the 1030 millibar range, I think, and some of the models do as well. And once that happens, we should get rid of a couple of these upper level lows, and as the high builds, conditions overall will become more favorable. Now, we are currently looking at that upper level low, once again sitting somewhere in this general area here, starting to die out. And as this trough sweeps down, this is probably going to be the last for a while as the ridge builds in once again. And once that ridge builds in, I'm very concerned that conditions are going to become favorable. Now, if we go out to the central Atlantic, this is a feature I do want to talk about. This is a tropical wave sitting, probably at about 10 north and 38 west. And this doesn't have much convection with it at all, very skimpy at this time, but I do think that this entire area has to be watched, and behind it as well, this tropical wave, because all this energy is moving in the general direction of the Caribbean Sea or the Lesser Antilles. Now, right now it's still pretty far south at 5-10 north, but as it slowly moves up towards the west-northwest, then we're going to start to see the potential for some development. Now, as this ridge builds in, keep in mind, this wave's probably going to get pushed in this general direction. That's what most people would think just by looking at the pattern, and that is what the models show. Once again, taking a look at water vapor, a lot of moisture with it, but not a lot of activity. It's kind of just floating moisture, but as that moves closer to the Caribbean, we'll likely see that flare. Behind that, another tropical wave come off. This one might be the one more models are picking up on. And then behind that, a very nice tropical wave moving off Africa. This one further north, but they tend to be coming off further north and kind of sliding southward and then moving back west. And we see that typically until August. You'll see waves move off and then kind of come up under the radar. But we've seen big hurricanes come up from under the radar. We saw Hurricane Charlie come up, and Ivan, and Dennis last year. But right now, I don't think we're going to get a hurricane out of any of these waves, at least not in the short term. However, we may in the long term, and I'll tell you why. There's another look at it. Here's the latest Canadian 48 hours. Notice right here is a tropical system. Also notice this area off the east coast. This could be associated with this upper level low. Some models are hinting that a tropical storm was going to form and kind of maybe move off this way. I really don't think that's going to happen. However, it's quite possible you could get some more moisture up in the northeast. Hopefully not, though. Okay, 48 hours. Our system there. 72 hours, 3 days from now, starts to move closer to the islands. Islands, watch this wave out here. I'm pretty sure it will probably become an invest. By 96 hours, we're talking about it coming north of, St. Croix and the U.S. Virgin Islands. By 120 hours, well north of Hispaniola, between the Bahamas and Bermuda. And by 144, I changed it to the 700 millibar vorticity just to kind of show the flow around the system, and clearly that would be the flow of a tropical system, I would think in my mind. Maybe I'm mistaken. Then again, maybe the Canadian's mistaken. However, this system would likely be steered generally in this general direction, northwesterly north direction. And we'll see. Maybe the ridge would break down, causing the system to kind of slide away. Hopefully that would be the case. We are also looking at the NAM. The NAM I'm giving more credibility after its wonderful prediction of Alberto. Here it is. This is in 84 hours, so this is probably about 3.5 days out. Clearly a tropical system here heading towards the northern Virgin Islands. And then if you look in the eastern Pacific, we're starting to get a tropical system out there and some convection over Nicaragua that we'd have to watch. So, the NAM showing development as well. We're going to switch now to the MM5, which is a very good tropical cyclone genesis model. And you see the system comes through and starts to approach the islands in a couple of days, and as it does so, it enters the Caribbean and does not develop, and that is great news. However, the more disturbing fact is that as this wave were to move to the west, if it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, there's no way out, whether or not it brings moisture to some place, whether or not that place needs it, or whether or not it develops. Clearly, as it moves through the Caribbean, it starts to have some type of rotation, but at this time the MM5 just not picking up on development of the system. The GFS is showing something different. As you can see, in about 5 days, 6 days, southeast Florida. There you go. Wow. Those in southeast Florida have to watch this carefully, because I think that's where this wave is probably going to end up. All the models are indicating either into the Caribbean, up towards southeast Florida, or up towards in between the Bahamas and Bermuda. Somewhere right in here, I'd make this cone over the next 6 days of where this wave can go. Now, if this had been a week ago, this wave would have probably been sucked up into an upper level low, and we would have never even seen the wave. With the wave not even having a lot of convection at this time, the likelihood for development is low. But if this does pan out, and we do have a system north of Puerto Rico in 4 or 5 days, heading up in this general direction, and it has a ridge to the north of it, steering it this direction, and conditions are favorable for development, we have to keep an eye out on this, no doubt about that, for sure. So, the NAM, GFS, Canadian, all showing development at this time. No gaps doesn't show it at all, so maybe that's some good news there. Elsewhere in the Eastern Pacific's quiet. We have the favorable phase of the MJO moving out of the Pacific into the Atlantic. That's going to hype up activity. But at this point, we still have a very dangerous typhoon in Winier approaching the island south of Japan, and it's going to probably re-intensify into a Category 4. It peaked at 150 miles an hour yesterday, the day before yesterday, and I believe it was 4th of July, it peaked at 150, and then started to weaken, and it's now down to 120 miles an hour. It's moving northwest at 6, and as it slowly moves here, waters south of 25 north are warm enough, and we think that the eye wall replacement cycle will stop enough to where this will become a Category 4 again, and then as it approaches the islands, probably a Category 3 moving on up into the Sea of Japan, and then as it spins on out up, or I'm sorry, that's not the Sea, this is the Sea of Japan. It should only be a tropical storm as it moves up there, and then as it moves on into Japan, it should be weakening rapidly. So that is great news there within Winier. And if we look at the latest satellite image of it, though, I did want to point out this is definitely re-intensifying. It didn't look so good earlier, but you could see that overall the cloud pattern is very good. And even though, as I mentioned, the MJO favorable phase is moving out, this system just looks too darn good behind it that I think this will become Belize. In fact, Belize, Super Typhoon Belize made landfall in Taiwan at 160 miles an hour 6 years ago, August 2000. I remember that because Hurricane Debbie was out there in the Atlantic, the first hurricane I ever tracked. And we're back on that name again, and I think this will become Belize. Certainly looking good at this time. So I'm Mike Naso from Internet Partnership Radio. Stay tuned to Internet Partnership Radio, and I'll see you next time.